Okay, circling back, we're going to talk about communication and actively listening, improving our active listening skills, because we talk a lot about acknowledge and ask, and you can't do the ask part without the acknowledge part, right? To show you're actively listening. You know, our goal is to get through LP Mammal when we talk to leads, right? Because we need those questions answered to consider them a hot lead and know what's best and how to help them. But more than that, the listening is part of building a relationship. And it's important that you show that you're actively listening, not only to build their trust, but that so you understand them and you put yourself in a better position to help them. So let's watch this quick video. It's about 11 minutes long. And then we can have some discussion after that. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Do you know the difference between hearing and listening? Hearing is perceiving and being aware of the sound. Listening is paying attention to that sound. Have you ever heard a conversation where someone pretended to be listening, but you could tell they were just hearing you? I notice, you notice, and our clients notice too. If you want to create deep bonds with anyone in your life, you must work on your listening skills. Hey there, and welcome to EverCoach, the leading online training platform for coaches who want to create impact and be prosperous. I'm your host, Ajit Navlaka, and today we're exploring 5 of my favorite active listening techniques to become a better person and coach. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the EverCoach channel. We release new videos like this every week to support your coaching journey. Open, two-way verbal communication is the foundation of building rapport. In any conversation, you have a speaker and a listener. Each has a specific role, but together they create a dialogue to exchange information. Notice that the role is listener, not hearer. Active listening, in simple words, can be defined as the ability to stay entirely committed and focused on what the speaker is saying, understand their message and the expressive context. So let's dive into the juicy part of the video. Techniques to improve your active listening skills as an individual and as a coach. The first technique to improve your active listening is blocking out all the distractions. Have you ever noticed that you start a conversation and want to pay full attention to the other person, but you start thinking of the bank letter you just received, or notice the noise of the coffee machine that is right behind you, or something else? Or going into a coaching session on an empty stomach. Not good. It happens to us all the time, and it's okay. Distractions will always be around. But for us to accomplish level 2 of active listening, we have to be prepared to let go of these distractions and focus on the conversation. There are 2 types of distractions, internal and external. Internal distractions are your own thoughts triggered by other factors and sabotage your concentration. For example, having a busy morning, a long to-do list, you forget to go to grocery shopping, or remembering you have to pay the water bill. The external factors that cause our distractions are those triggered by things around you. The sound of your phone when you get a new email, chat, or text message, or it could even be a noisy mosquito that sneaked into your room, or squirrel. What easy changes can you make to reduce distractions and increase your capacity to focus on the conversation instead? To reduce any internal distractions, especially before a coaching session, practice meditation or breath work. It'll help your mind to be at a peaceful state and quiet the inner chatter so you can really focus on the present dialogue you're in or about to get in. To eliminate the external distraction, make sure you create an environment with the least distractions possible. Turn off your phone or put it on silent. Close the blinds if the view outside catches your attention. If you're at a cafe, you might want to sit facing the wall to avoid getting distracted by movement, and so you can concentrate on the speaker. Small changes go a long way. The next technique is to develop a PACE or PACE conversation. PACE stands for purpose, ask, connect, and encourage. It's a simple formula for maximizing the interaction and improving active listening. First, you identify the purpose of the message. Then you ask questions to understand the topic deeper. Then you connect at an empathetic level with the speaker. And lastly, you encourage the speaker to feel understood after sharing their input. To get results from this technique, you need to focus on the conversation so you can actually develop your own follow-up questions. Before making your questions, wait for the speaker to finish speaking so they don't feel pressured and they don't feel interrupted.
I'll tell you what, you talk, I'll listen.
As a part of this technique, you also need to show you can be empathetic and understand the speaker through their story and their body language. How do you practice after listening with your clients or on day-to-day interactions? Let us know if you would add anything to the first couple of techniques in the comment section below. The next technique to work on is to pay attention to the content and the context. This means not only listening to the message being delivered, but also the speaker's emotions and behavioral context. In short, their body language. Focus on the nonverbal cues of communication of the speaker. Does it match what they're really saying? If you don't understand the content or context, you might not be able to give your best advice, nor can you guide your client towards another direction that is more beneficial. The same word or sentence can have different meanings based on how you say it. I can say, I got a new client, or I got a new client, or I got a new client. Our facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language provide context to whatever we are communicating. And this is not only for whoever is in front of you, it applies to you too. From the listener's perspective, being silent with arms crossed and wandering eyes show you're not really paying attention or that you're not interested. A few tips to keep the conversation going while understanding the message is to nod occasionally, make use of your facial expressions, maintain eye contact, and give the speaker some small verbal comments like, yes, Active listening is not only what we listen, it's also what we see that backs up what we listen. It will allow you to connect better with the other people and your clients and be able to guide more effectively whatever outcome that is to be achieved. If you want to learn more about how to read your client's body language, check out this video. The fourth technique is to turn off your problem-solving mode during the conversation. As human beings, it's only natural for us to want to help others and look for all kinds of solutions to the problem at hand. But sometimes we don't want to be cut off in mid-sentence with a portfolio of solutions. No one likes a know-it-all anyways.
And you know about that stuff?
Penny. I'm a physicist. I have a working knowledge of the entire universe and everything it contains.
Control your eagerness to chime in and try to tame those thoughts until their point of view is complete. Truth is, we don't know it all or have all the answers. We need to have all the facts and context before even processing the information and offering our ideas. As an active listener, you need to have an open mind and be flexible in considering new ideas and perspectives while pausing any judgment, criticism, or possible argument. Last but not the least, technique number 5. Hone your active listening skills by reflecting back what you've listened. Repeat and rephrase the main ideas you got from the speakers to ensure you understood the content and clarify it before giving back. There are 2 purposes of doing this. On one hand, it'll keep your mind on track with all the information. And secondly, it will also allow the person speaking to know that you have paid attention and understood the message. You can rephrase their thoughts or ask further questions with, let me see if I got this clear, or is this what you meant, or what did you mean with? It's a great technique, especially for coaches, as it'll allow your client to further organize their thoughts and ideas with more clarity. It is really painful when someone doesn't ask during the conversation and by the end just comes up with a simple, huh? Or how come? I'd rather just say they got distracted.
Huh? What? What?
Come again?
It's a good question.
Active listening is used to encourage respect and understanding between the participants of any conversation. You gain perspective and information while providing feedback to the speaker. Once you got the entire message and want to offer your own feedback on the topic, be assertive and open with your opinion without attacking the speaker. Treat the receiver just as you think they would want to be treated, and be honest with your perception and message. This way, they'll feel more respected and appreciated because you did pay attention. My wish for you is that you never stop practicing and honing your listening skills, as they are the most valuable skills you need to become an extraordinary coach. I hope you can apply it not only in your coaching, but in your daily life, and teach others to do it too. So together, you can become better human beings. Now, don't stop your learning here. Active listening is one of the most important skills you need as a coach. Watch this video next to learn what are the other ones every master coach has. Oh, you're still here. Amazing. You made it all the way till the end. You should be proud of yourself for investing this time in your growth. Hope you found this video on active listening useful for yourself and for coaching clients. Help us spread the love by liking.
All right. What do you guys think about that? Any takeaways? Any recurring themes that we discuss, hopefully? Everyone's on mute, so. Nate, was that almost you unmuted and then muted again? Did you have something?
No, I mean, I've heard this stuff before, obviously, but it is something that you have to be reminded of. And really, I guess what I was just thinking about was like how one of the last things you said is like using it not just with your clients, but just using it in life, because I could probably use stuff like that with talking to my kids, maybe.
Yep. Same thing. And honestly, while he was talking about it, I thought the same thing. Like Amanda or the kids will come downstairs during the day when they're on a break and start talking to me about something, and I'm in the middle of something where I should just kind of pause, turn, give them my attention. Because what happens when I don't is I half listen, then I'm half-assing what I'm doing in front of me, and then I have to stop doing what I'm doing, and then I have to listen to it again. And
then you get irritated.
Right. But it's my fault because I couldn't just pause to focus in the first place. Some of these things are going to be not as applicable because not a lot of it, but part of it was about body language and reading clues, right? To make sure that what they're mirroring, that their body language is mirroring what they're telling you. Now, of course, you can't do that if you're talking to somebody on the phone because you can't see their body language. But one thing that you can use as part of when you're scripting is communication is so important in what we do in helping you make this huge decision. And sometimes it's hard to understand exactly what you mean just over the phone. Let's sit down together or have a virtual call just so I can see your face when you're talking to me, to make sure I have a better understanding and that you're understanding me. Because it's really important. You're about to make a really important decision. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. That shows a lot of things, that you're willing to invest more time, how seriously you're taking it, and that you're really seeking to understand them, right? A really important part of it was he talked about listening. He didn't use these words exactly, but he was alluding to it, listening not to reply. not thinking about what your reply is going to be while they're talking, not just not interrupting them while they're talking. Don't interrupt them in your head because you're already thinking about what you want to say back. And if the first thing you say back is blah, 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 versus acknowledging what they've said, then you're showing that you weren't actively listening. You were listening to reply. And you're not going to as successfully build a relationship with someone if you show them that you're listening to reply, not listening to understand. And that's not easy to do, because when we reply because we want to provide value, right? And how do we provide value? By saying what we know and what we've experienced. But there's an extra step in there which shouldn't be overlooked. It's showing that you understand first before you do that. That's how you really ramp up the relationship building. And I'm sure we've all experienced that to some degree on both sides of it. This is one of those things where, I mean, talk about intentional and being intent. If you're not in the right mindset to be ready to listen to folks, to acknowledge what they've said, use it to ask more questions to move the ball down the field, and you're just kind of winging it, it's not going to work as well as if you're prepared. And that's why we talk about intent with everything that we do. But when it comes down to reaching out to people, and this is people we've talked with or people we've never spoken with, it's about making sure we're in the right mind frame and we're reaching out with intent. Not only intent to gain knowledge, but intent in how we're going to communicate with them. Anybody have anything else?
I do. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I liked how at the beginning, I missed a little bit of the middle because I got kicked off, but how he was talking about external distractors as well. And I think that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot, which is why it's better for me to be in the office and work than it is for me to be at home. I don't know if anybody else gets distracted at home, but whenever I work from home, I feel like so many times I'm like, oh, laundry, dishes, what am I going to cook for dinner? I need to make the beds, like the kids' rooms are a mess, whatever it may be. But if I go to the office, I can solely focus and get my mindset on work and not my house or my kids or whatever it may be. So that's something important, I think, for everybody to find their space and their place where they can get into that mindset to really focus on whatever it may be. If it's work, then maybe it's the office. If not, sometimes it's hard if you do work at home to not have that office time while your kids and your family are there too. You know what I mean?
I think if I'm understanding Tiffany correctly, she's really saying that distractions can come in a couple of different ways. Not only what's physically in front of you, that's like running across your room, right? But it's also what's in your head that can be distracting you as well. It doesn't have to be the dog or your kid standing beside you trying to talk to you. It can also be the other things that you know you want to get done.
Yeah.
Really important things to keep in mind.
Fine too, like I read a lot, and when I do the audiobook, when I'm driving, sometimes I'm like, wait, what, where am I? And I have to rewind and start back because my mind just drifts because I wasn't actively listening to the story. So, I mean, your mind just wanders, you know, soccer practice or the closing or whatever it might be. And I mean, obviously you're focusing on the road, but I just find like sometimes even my intentions are good to actively listen and I still find myself messing up.
I mean, from what you're saying, I can understand that and relate to it. I mean, I've done the same thing with Audible books, try to listen to them. And it sounds like you're saying the same thing. You're like, stop. Okay, let me go back because I got distracted.
Yeah.
But
it takes me twice as long to read the book.
Well, yeah, that's true, right? But you're still multitasking because you're doing it in the car. So, you know, so maybe you see like a quarter time. But, you know, the thing that it feels like we're talking about is that can happen while you're having a conversation with someone too.
Yep.
And it's also about as being focused on being present. You can't just count on showing up and being present. You have to be in the mindset to be present and pay attention right then.
Yeah.
You know your phone's going to go off.
Yeah.
You know something else is going to make a noise. You know somebody's going to walk by your cube or your office, right? You got to be focused and honed in on it. And you can't do it by just showing up. You got to put your mind in the place to be ready to do it.
Yeah, I have that problem when if I have a client or somebody that's overly chatty and they just keep like talking and you're like, good Lord, like that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, come on. And that's, something that you have to get past, but kind of like, what you were saying, Janine, is like, it's almost like you have to reel yourself back in and say, hold on, let me focus back. Cause I think eventually if you start thinking that, it starts showing in your expressions. And to that, I'll say one of the things they brought up in the video is as far as the nods and the mm-hms and all that stuff. I believe you should do that, but I think you can do it in a fake way too, because I've seen that in talking to people where they're and it's totally like, okay, did you hear what I just said? Like, has anybody else heard that before?
Andrew's dad, we actually just had this conversation over the break. Andrew's dad doesn't really talk a whole lot. He's pretty quiet and reserved, but I swear when that man talks, you better listen because it's really important or hilarious. And his brother was home over the break from Arizona, and he was talking to Andrew about, man, I felt so bad because I was having a conversation with Dad the other day, and then he said to me, did you hear what I said? Did you listen? And he's like, he legit could not, his answer was no. Like he was not actively listening to what he said. And he felt very upset about that because he knew that genuinely hurt his feelings because that's his dad and he had something to say and he wasn't really paying attention well enough to be engaged. So people can pick up on that. And then I don't think that makes it easier to move the relationship forward because that's just the mindset that they're going to have. Oh, well, they're not listening to anything I say anyway. So what's the point in talking?
That's really why we encourage that acknowledge and ask piece, right? And Ashley, I know you've heard this. Cassie, you haven't as much, but when we're talking about when we're prospecting and we get somebody on the phone and we're getting them to tell us about what they're doing, this is what we're saying. You acknowledge what they say, you say what they've said back to them in a way. It shows that you're actively listening and you're seeking to understand them. It also gives you the opportunity to collect your thoughts while you think of the next question you want to ask to continue to move the conversation along. Ashley, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say that I used to have this manager at the bank, and he was like retired military. And I would get so aggravated with him because obviously the only time I go to him is like when I have a problem, and there would be a pause before he responded to me. And it took me a long time to realize that he was like literally processing and coming up with the best answer before he responded. So it makes me think of him because he literally listened to everything I said, but there would be like, like a 20-second delay of a response, but it was literally, and then he'd be like, okay, we'll do this, So.
That's great that you can tell that, and it's even better that you figure out that's what he was doing right. But it was clearly evident that he wasn't just responding right away, which means he was actively listening because he didn't have an answer immediately when you finished.
Mm-hmm.
What we do to kind of fill that gap is to do the acknowledge piece, right? Just so there's not dead air, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, X, Y, Z, now ABC or whatever. Charles, were you going to say something earlier?
Yeah, everybody else kind of already hit on it. Just putting yourself in the right mindset beforehand.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like riding a bike or any of this other stuff that we do. You know, you're not accidentally intentional, right?
Smile when you dial.
I mean, it's all about making sure you're in the right headspace to do this and you're prepared to do it. For lack of maybe a better term, it's like an athlete getting warmed up before a game. If you don't take some time to get yourself in the right headspace to make sure that you're thinking and planning to act with intent when you're reaching out to do your to-dos or your follow-ups or just your prospecting, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. You're not your best self at that point, as good as you could be, which means you're not going to be as efficient as we talk about trying to be, always striving to be efficient. So we get maximum output from our effort, right? So you have the freedom to do whatever else you want to do.
I think it's also important to point out, especially for, you know, some of the newer agents on the team, that these like tips and things that we do, they are going to take some time, and you're not always going to get it right. But I'm saying that because sometimes you'll be thinking about this when you're doing it and asking yourself, am I doing this right? Am I, you know, asking or acknowledging? And that can be a distraction in itself. So over time, it's just going to get, you know, it's like anything else. You practice it and you're going to get better at it. But, you know, it can actually, don't think too hard on it. You still need to be natural when you're doing it, because you can actually, you know, for example, if you say the same thing over and over again, it can actually make you sound like silly. If, you know, they're like, hey, we want a 3-bedroom with 2 baths, and that's all they said. And you're like, oh, so just so I hear that correctly, you're saying you want a 3-bedroom with 2 baths? They're gonna be like, idiot, you know what I mean? So there's a time to do it. You know what I mean? And if you say the same thing over and over again, like repeating everything they say about them, it can come off like, does this person have a mental problem or something? So
that's a fair point. It really is. It's about using it judiciously, right? As part of the conversation, not as like a huge stop sign in the middle of the conversation, right? Or a big detour from it. The idea is, you know, keep the thing on track, but moving forward. What can we do to help do that and show that we're listening and understanding them, but also not be robotic in it?
I take notes.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of like LP Mammal is a road guide or a blueprint. It's not a step-by-step.
Yeah.
And
I
just
take notes, and then like the next time I call them back, hey, how's your mom since she fell, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, and as a reminder, you don't have to get all the answers in one
for sure.
conversation.
For sure.
It actually gives you more of a reason to call them back
100%.
and have something to talk about, instead of, oh, you know, I'm just checking in on you, you know. So just keep that in mind, and also try to change up the verbiage when you're doing it, instead of saying the same thing each time, if that makes sense.
I'm not supposed to say that, remember?
I know, that's why I did it.
Any other comments or questions or thoughts on it?
I think this is really helpful with your spouse, especially mine, because he's so cerebral when he speaks that I have a very difficult time actively listening, because all of it usually just goes right over my head. And I said, hon, you really need to consider your audience. This is a conversation that, you know, maybe I can't have with you, but if you want to break it down, I would be more apt to want to pay attention and actively listen and engage in what you're trying to tell me. And that's just the brutally honest truth. I mean, I'm going to get lost in the sauce if I'm bored or don't understand, or it's just like way over my head. You know, that's just one example.
I'd say based on your technique, that ultimately makes you a better communicator, because instead of trying to, you know, understand something that you really can't, you're saying, hey, I need additional information, or I need you to deliver it in a different way, you know, to help me understand that. That's a great communication technique that, you know, not everybody's capable of doing.
Right. Yeah. Like when he would write his sermons, I said, you know, maybe you need to change it just a little bit so that your message is actually heard and not lost.
Make sure you're considering your audience and
that's exactly right.
Yourself,
100%.
Which is something we need to be cognizant of too, and remembering that not everyone understands real estate like we do.
For sure.
And not taking for granted that they understand anything at all, even after we tell them twice.
I didn't know what escrow was until I was in real estate school. I mean, that's embarrassing. You know, my sellers had no idea that they had escrow that was going to be paid back to them after they sold their house. I assumed, didn't tell them. The attorney assumed they knew. They didn't know, you know? So, I mean, break it down. Like, it's Joe Blow off the street does not know anything unless they say to you, this isn't my first rodeo. I understand, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes even then that's not.
Yeah, don't let that be a non-starter, because people think they know and then they don't know, or they think they know based on their last experience, but that person that was guiding them might not have guided it the right way.
And it may not have been in North Carolina either.
Right.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Anything else? I know you guys have stuff to do and I've got calls to get to as well. Janine and Nate, I know you guys we've talked about this before. Ashley and Cassie, I hope it was helpful for, as you're continuing to work on prospecting, Ashley and Cassie, as you're kind of ramping up to get ready to start this, just knowing that part of what we do is being very intentional and cognizant of what we're doing as we're doing it, or trying to be, because that allows us to build the relationship better, quicker, and show that we're invested in trying to help them and provide value, but it also will help us be more efficient.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like every time like the phone call, like I can just tell when I'm like, well, I screwed that up. Like I should have been, I don't know. Some people just make me not confident in myself, and I don't know why, like no reason. And then other people, like I'm super confident and I can have full conversations with them, but I like immediately know, like, well, screwed that one up, you know?
Actually, I completely get that. I remember being a brand new nurse working night shift, and this verbiage won't make sense to you, maybe not, but I had a patient go into rapid AFib at 2:00 in the morning, and I can't do anything without orders. So I had to call this cardiac doctor that was on call, who I didn't know from Adam. And I was very intimidated. I was a new nurse, but I just had to bite the bullet and just freaking make the phone call. And he doesn't want to know all this stuff. He wants A, B, and C. What do you need? You know? And so it's just trying to take a deep breath and be confident in yourself. I think that that's one of my weaknesses, is not having enough confidence. And that is completely relayed as a, you know, especially in nursing. I found that out. If your patient has if they can pick up one little moment, you know, iota that you're not confident in what you're doing, they're going to be scared shitless for you to take care of them, you know? And so it's just, it's a process, and it sucks and it's hard. And the learning curve is really huge to begin with. And it's just going to come. I mean, I got this guy he texted me the other day, I'm a motivated cash buyer looking for an investment property. My budget's up to 2.5 million. I don't need to be inundated with phone calls. I'm like, okay, well then, you know.
I found a really good video that Brandon sent me that kind of alludes to handling that conversation, maybe, which I hope I might bring it up Thursday. We'll see how things shake out. But to both of your points, we can all feel when things hadn't, you know, when you hang up the phone, you're like, well, shit, that could have gone better.
Yep. Right.
The biggest and first step is recognizing that, and then figuring out how to change it next time. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm talking about. It's okay if it goes bad. And this applies to transactions, relationships, whatever. What are you learning from it to minimize the chance that it happens next time? What are you doing differently? How are you going to approach it differently? What are you going to use from what you've learned to get better? And I think that's a good point to leave it for the day.
We were talking about that the other day. Well, you only make that mistake one time, you know?
Ideally, right?
Hopefully, in a perfect world.
Right. But it is a lot of muscle memory. It's about, you know, practicing until you can do it automatically more than you can do it now anyways. It really kicks in. All right. Good conversation, guys. I hope it was helpful. Y'all have a great day, and I will see you on Thursday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.